In the heart of Zimbabwe's rugged mountains, a woman named Nyasha stood at the edge of a precipice, her eyes wide with astonishment. Before her, emerging from the dense forest, was a figure unlike any she had ever seen. Tall, broad-shouldered, and with a face devoid of the familiar softness of her own reflection. This being was a mystery. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with an overwhelming curiosity. For 36 years, Nyasha had lived in these mountains, her only companions the animals and the whispering winds. She had never known that such creatures existed. The presence of this strange being disrupted everything she had ever known, forcing her to question the world she had always taken for granted. Nyasha's story began in a secluded village nestled at the base of the Mavaradona Mountains, a place where traditions dictated every aspect of life. This village, like many others in the region, adhered strictly to customs that had been passed down for generations. Men were considered the protectors and providers, while women were expected to maintain the home and care for children. However, Nyasha's mother, Chippo, was different. She was a woman who refused to conform to these expectations. She was strong-willed, independent, and unafraid to speak her mind. This defiance did not sit well with the elders of the village, who believed that a woman should remain subservient. When Chippo became pregnant without a husband, she was scorned and ridiculed. The village saw her as an outcast, someone who had brought shame upon her lineage. Despite the whispers and judgmental gazes, she remained steadfast, determined to raise her child in a place free from the harsh constraints of tradition. She made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. She would leave the village and seek refuge in the mountains, packing only the essentials: a few clay pots, some dried food, and a handmade spear. Chippo carried her newborn daughter deep into the wilderness. The journey was arduous, but she pressed on, fueled by the hope of building a life free from societal constraints. Finally, she discovered a hidden valley, a paradise untouched by human interference. It was a place of abundant fruit trees, crystal clear streams, and caves that offered shelter from the elements. This would be their new home. As Nyasha grew, she knew nothing beyond the mountains. Her mother became her teacher, instilling in her the wisdom of the natural world. She learned to read the signs of the forest, the way the birds' songs changed before a storm, how the trees whispered secrets through the rustling leaves, and which plants could heal ailments. The animals became her friends, their presence more familiar to her than any human. She spoke to them, and though they never spoke back in words, she understood their gestures and sounds. Chippo never spoke of the world beyond the mountains. To Nyasha, the idea of another life, one filled with people like her, never even occurred. Her mother told her stories of spirits and gods, of ancestors who roamed the earth in unseen forms. She was raised to believe that they were the only two people in existence, guardians of the sacred land they inhabited. The concept of men, villages, or communities was as foreign to her as the stars in the sky. Years passed, and Nyasha grew into a strong and capable woman. She knew how to hunt with precision, how to weave baskets from reeds, and how to create fire without flint. But despite her deep connection with nature, loneliness sometimes crept in. She often wondered why she and her mother were alone. Where had they come from? Were there others like them somewhere beyond the mountains? These questions lingered in the back of her mind, but she never dared to voice them. Eventually, time caught up with Chippo. The years of hardship and isolation took their toll, and one cold night, she fell gravely ill. Nyasha did everything she could to heal her mother, using the medicinal knowledge she had been taught, but nothing worked. As her mother lay weak and frail, she took Nyasha's hand and, for the first time, spoke of the world beyond the mountains. "There is more to life than this place," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "One day you will see it." But with those final words, Chippo passed away, leaving Nyasha alone in the only world she had ever known. For years after her mother's passing, Nyasha continued to live as she always had. She roamed the forests, swam in the rivers, and slept beneath the vast Zimbabwean sky. But something inside her had changed. The questions her mother's final words had planted in her mind began to take root. She became more curious about what lay beyond the mountains. The thought both excited and frightened her. Then, one fateful afternoon, everything changed. While tracking a wounded antelope, Nyasha heard an unfamiliar sound. Voices. They were deep and rhythmic, unlike anything she had ever heard before. Curious yet cautious, she followed the sounds to a clearing, where she saw them being similar to her in form, but strikingly different. They were taller, their shoulders broad, their movements confident. Their faces were angular, their voices deeper. They carried weapons, but they did not seem to be hunting. Nyasha watched from the shadows, her heart pounding. Who were these people? Why had she never seen them before? Unbeknownst to her, a group of hunters from a distant village had ventured into the mountains in search of new hunting grounds. Among them was Tawanda, a young hunter known for his keen sense of adventure. As they moved through the dense forest, he felt something, an unshakable feeling that they were being watched. Tawanda separated from his group, drawn toward an unseen presence. As he stepped forward, he suddenly found himself face to face with Nyasha. Both froze, locked in mutual astonishment. "Who are you?" Tawanda asked, his voice laced with both wonder and caution. "I am Nyasha," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "I live here." "But what are you?" Tawanda was taken aback. "I am a man," he said, studying her with equal curiosity. From the village beyond these mountains, but the word man meant nothing to Nyasha. She had no concept of gender differences, no understanding of the roles that had been ingrained in human society. But as they spoke, a bridge began to form between their two worlds. Over time, Nyasha and Tawanda developed a friendship unlike any other. He taught her about life in the village, about families, community, and the existence of both men and women. In return, she shared her knowledge of the land, showing him how to read the stars, track animals without disturbing the ecosystem, and understand the silent language of the wild. Eventually, Tawanda invited Nyasha to visit his village. The decision was not an easy one. She had spent her entire life believing she was alone in the world. To step into a new reality was both terrifying and exhilarating. But her mother's words echoed in her mind. "One day you will see it." And so, she took her first steps beyond the mountains. Upon arriving, Nyasha was met with awe and skepticism. The villagers marveled at her beauty and wisdom, yet some feared her presence, believing she was a spirit or an omen. However, as time passed, Nyasha proved her worth. She taught the village sustainable ways to interact with nature, introducing them to herbal medicine and the wisdom of the land. Through her influence, the rigid traditions of the village began to shift. Women were encouraged to learn new skills, and men began to see the value in collaboration and respect. Nyasha and Tawanda's bond deepened, and together they became symbols of change and unity. Nyasha's story became legend, a tale passed down through generations. She was the woman who lived in the mountains for 36 years, who had never known men, yet changed the world when she finally met them. Her journey was a testament to the power of knowledge, curiosity, and the courage to step beyond the familiar. If you enjoyed this tale, please like, share, and comment below. Don't forget to hit the bell notification button to stay updated with more African folk tales.